All right, everybody, welcome back and happy Friday. Let's get right to it with a bold, calm claim today. Our government, your government, hates you and me. They hate us. And they're working very hard every single day to prove that point. This lack of love for us is, of course, led by our current president, Joe Biden, with the help of Barack Obama, who is using his final lame duck weeks, about 4.5 weeks, to make a massive mess for his incoming successor. Joe Biden wants to see America struggle. He wants to see Donald Trump struggle. And I'm going to prove it to you right now. Let's get right into today's rapid reactions. Old Joe is quite literally doing the exact opposite of securing the border. Do you remember the miles and miles of border wall material that Donald Trump had in place, ready to go, ready to be built, ready to be installed? Well, that same massive beams that Joe Biden and the eco-friendly Democrats, they let them rot into the earth and the ground in simply spiting Donald Trump for the past 4 years. Well, with the return of Donald Trump on the horizon, Biden has started auctioning off this wildly expensive material. It's thick steel. I've felt it before. I've been right at that border wall. The miles that they've built, massive, 30, 40 feet high, thick ass steel, really dense, expensive. And get this. Some of these beams could be tens of thousands of dollars. They're selling for $5 freaking dollars. $5. First of all, wasn't it our tax dollars that paid for these materials in the first place? Why the hell should anyone have to spend any more money to buy it back? More importantly, why on earth is it even for sale? Trump's coming back. Let him use it to continue the wall. This is the example, the latest example of how Joe Biden and Barack Obama recklessly abusing their power during the final term of their terms, Obama 3.0. Remarkably enough, illegal aliens could go ahead and purchase that material from the government. Let that sink in. The people who were trying to keep out, or Mexico for that matter, can now go online and purchase the materials that were supposed to be used to keep out the Mexicans and others from coming across that southern border. Good job, Joe. Great job, Barack. Thanks again. If Biden thinks that this is going to stop Trump from building that wall, he should really, really get the hell out of the way already. Moving on. Donald Trump was just named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. We told you about that yesterday. Adding another front page feature to his massive collection. Of course, anytime Trump does something well or receives credit or praise of any kind, the left, the folks over at MSNBC, Joyless Joy Reid starts to hyperventilate before going into an illiterate, incomprehensible rant. Just take a listen to the very latest.
Better or for worse is not much of a ringing endorsement, and we all know which one Trump falls under. And let's remember who else has been given this title in years past in the same category: Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Ayatollah Khomeini, and Vladimir Putin. In fact, Stalin won the distinction twice, just like Trump.
Joy, did you really just do that? Did you really just say because Trump was on Time Magazine's cover, you compared him to Adolf Hitler again? Joy, I got a news flash for you. 2008 and 2012, there's a guy named Barack Hussein Obama. Well, he was Time Magazine's Person of the Year. So I guess that means we should be comparing Barack Obama to Joseph Stalin too, Joy? Is that right? Bill Clinton also won it twice. And now he's begging old Joe to pardon his criminal wife. Where are the dictator comparisons there, Joyless? Joy's worthless rants comparing Trump to dictators hold no weight. In fact, Time Magazine itself holds no weight, especially after all the BS they did to prop up Kamala Harris back in August. Remind me again, how did that work out? And by the way, we're showing a picture of Kamala Harris proudly on the cover of Time Magazine. I want to flash back quickly to 2006. There's a woman named Crystal Magnum, young woman at the time who called herself an exotic dancer. This is the young woman that accused 3 Duke lacrosse players of rape. The story had the nation in a chokehold. It was everywhere. I remember this. Well, guess what she just admitted to?
And I testified falsely against them by saying that they raped me when they didn't, and that was wrong.
Wow, folks. Wow. Now she's facing other charges, but she really should spend the rest of her life in prison. I doubt she understands how many lives were ruined because of her malicious lie. Those kids who were accused at the time, in fact, they had to drop out of school. Some went back. They probably had an impossible time to get jobs, probably ruined their lives forever. And now, how many years later, 30, 40 years later, she's now saying she lied, she made it all up. Wow. They had their reputations completely destroyed, and they lost the trust of their friends and families. They've lived 20 years in shame because the court of public opinion made them out to be monsters and convicted them. They slammed the door on those kids. 2006 Duke men's lacrosse season was canceled entirely. The team's head coach, Mike Pressler, had to go home and tell his wife and kids he was no longer employed. He got tossed. I'm all for holding predators accountable, but this is an issue of cancel culture. It may have been the original cancel culture. If you don't check your facts, lives can be destroyed forever. Should she face jail time? Of course she should. Absolutely. I doubt she may not get any additional jail time for that, though. It's 20 years ago. We're in a different world now, right? She's facing other charges. I hope she gets thrown in jail for the rest of her life. She's a black woman who for years had the support of the corrupt media. I bet anything. By the way, you know who else did this? Al Sharpton did this. Al freaking Sharpton did this he brought some woman up who claimed to be raped by a Jewish kid. You remember this? In Brooklyn? That was a lie, too. What happens? Al's a left-wing media star. He's got a show on MSNBC. This is such a corrupt media. I bet anything that this woman's going to end up writing a book and making a lot of money off her courageous honesty. Sincerely. Pound sand, lady. Speaking of mainstream media darlings, listen to Cori Bush. Remember her, the Squadster? Well, she reflects on her record of accomplishments.
Thank you for bringing all of yourself to Congress. Thank you for how you help communities from Detroit to Minneapolis to Pittsburgh to Boston to the Bronx to Chicago to Puerto Rico, Central America to Somalia to Haiti to Palestine and everywhere in between.
Do you now see why she was out? Remember her? She was during the Black Lives Matter, defund the police push. Cori Bush was front and center on that. She was the main squadster who was saying defund the police. And then we found out she was spending $70,000 a year on her private security, armed security. And when they asked her about it, she said, do you want me to die? That's a great soundbite. I wish we had that. I mean, seriously, Central America, Haiti, Somalia, she talks about, Palestine. None of those sound like members of the United States that I've heard of. Maybe Canada soon, but she didn't mention Canada. She's citing all of the work that she has done for everyone except the people who elected her in Missouri. No wonder you got booted, Cori Bush. She strikes me as another future author who'll be promoting a new book, a New York Times bestseller, no doubt, on mainstream networks. I can see the CNN headlines now. Cori Bush writes a jarring tell-all exposing her tireless work for communities in need. Not in America, though. Once again, pound sand, lady, and don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Let's end with a little bit of a laugh, shall we? The Trump Time magazine cover has liberals all over the place shaving their blue hair, crying in the fetal positions. Listen to this little rant from another Trump derangement victim.
Well, Time magazine, just when you thought the media couldn't get any worse, you guys said, hold my beer. In a year where we had Taylor Swift, Kamala Harris, and Giselle Pichot, you chose the most repugnant, vile human being to ever walk the earth as your person of the year. At least half of America, and probably most of the world, is absolutely disgusted. I hope you go out of business.
These liberals are losing their freaking minds. The guy, Trump, survived 2 assassination attempts, 1 through the year, almost wiped him out. He won an election. He beat a weaponized justice system against him. He even worked at McDonald's. And you would rather see some girl who sings about her terrible choices in men on the cover of Time. God bless you guys. Good luck with that. And why the hell would Kamala Harris be on any cover at all? The person of the year gets the nod, not the Biggest Loser. Goya, we've been talking about this since we started the show. Great folks at Goya are one of our main sponsors. In 2021, Goya launched Goya Cares, a global initiative to protect children and educate children on mental health. Goya Cares is providing schools and community centers with a preventative education curriculum and a free assembly that includes the viewing of the Goya Cares movie called Press Pause. Press Pause is intended to raise awareness regarding mental health issues, abuse, and bullying among children, teens, and in our communities. Press Pause is an educational film following a young 15-year-old Sofia Rodriguez as she navigates adolescence, self-doubt, and an abusive relationship amid her parents' turbulent divorce, set within the cultural context of her Hispanic family. The film explores her discomfort with unwanted attention from her uncle and the pressures of maintaining a facade of perfection in high school. It introduces the Press Pause campaign, promoting kindness and advocacy, highlighted by Sofia leaving a note saying, "You matter," for a bullied peer. The film encourages open family communication about mental health and culminates in Sofia's transformative realization of her right to seek help. Through the power of empathy and small acts of kindness, Press Pause displays the importance of being proactive in supporting one's community and underscores the critical importance of self-advocacy. Thank you, Goya and Goya Cares. All right, now time for today's Truth Bomb. Hey, Bolling Truth Bomb. This is a good one, folks. This is a great one. Donald Trump rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange yesterday. Donald Trump was asked if Americans should invest more into the stock market right now by none other than Jim Cramer. Now, listen closely to the president's response, and I'll explain on the backside.
I know you've got a ton of things to do, but what can you say to the working person who owns stocks? Should they buy more stock?
Well, I don't want to get into a situation where they do and we have a dip or something, because that can always happen. You know that better than anybody in the world, probably. I think you're the leading authority in going up and going down, but you always end up. He always ends up. That's the good news. But I think long term, this is going to be a country like no other.
Yeah, and I'm not sure Trump was. I know what he was alluding to, and then he kind of backed off it. Jim Cramer, there's a thing. Jim Cramer's been on TV forever. I started my television career at CNBC. I started my television career 18 years ago at CNBC next to Jim Cramer. There's a thing called the opposite Cramer, or the anti or opposite Cramer. Jim Cramer makes recommendations on stocks. Turns out if you take the opposite side of Cramer, you've done very well. In fact, you've done way better than the S&P. If you take the Cramer picks, you get slaughtered, and you've been slaughtered. Quick story. 2007, probably my first time on television, I heard Cramer was coming after me because I was in oil and gold. I was into oil and gold. I was a commodities trader on the floor of New York commodities exchanges. Cramer was coming after me because he wanted to leg sweep me. I was a new guy on TV. He was the big dog in financial television. I heard about it, and I didn't know what I'm going to do. I got the big dog coming after me, right? What am I going to do? Live show, 5 o'clock at night. Cramer comes on, and he says, stocks are going up, financials are going up. I said, Jim, I don't think so. I'm taking the other side of that bet. He said, what do you want to bet? I said, I'll tell you what, I'll bet you $50,000 for charity right now, live TV, that my choices do better than your choices 1 year from now. He said, big hat, no cattle. What do you like? I said, I like gold and oil. I'll take gold and oil for the next year. What do you want, Jim? He took financials. 2007, that was maybe 2 months before the major financial meltdown that almost put the United States into bankruptcy. I won $50,000 from Jim Cramer, my first act on television. Here's the punchline to the story. Ready for this? He never paid. Truth Bomb, Bolling. All right, folks, what a pathetic, desperate move this was by CNN. The more I think about it, watch this and allow me to explain why and how this is the final nail for the coffin, in the coffin for the legacy media. Listen.
For 3 months, I didn't know anything about my family. I didn't hear anything about my children. The fighter hands him something to eat. He barely lifted to his mouth. But his body can't handle it. Okay, you're okay. His captors fled during the fall of Damascus, leaving him with no food or water. That was at least 4 days ago. I'm shaking. My face is shaking, he says. The rebel tells him there's no more army, no more prisons, no more checkpoints. Are you serious, he says? Surya Harra. Syria is free, he tells him. It's the first time he has heard those words.
All right, for those of you listening on radio, on podcast, that was a Syrian refugee, a Syrian prisoner that we're to understand that was incarcerated for how many years. So CNN would have us believe that they're witnessing a Syrian prisoner being freed from a secret Damascus, Syria prison after 3 months. 3 months behind bars. But the guy, he's wearing very clean clothes. He's perfectly groomed. His fingernails are perfectly manicured. You would think a network this desperate would consider the details before attempting such a ridiculous publicity stunt. I mean, the guy was looking good for a prisoner who was supposedly confined to solitude and starved in a prison cell for months by Bashar al-Assad, and who didn't know that the regime had fallen at the prison and the prison had been emptied. He had no idea, allegedly. And by the way, CNN reporter Clarissa Ward just happened to be there just in time to catch it all with cameras rolling. Wow, how fortunate and also how fitting that comes post CNN International PR, by the way, they sent that out. How fitting of their timing. Their CNN communications team sent that out. What an obvious PR stunt. And then, of course, thanks to Elon Musk, who's done his part to protect the First Amendment when he acquired Twitter, now X, the community notes underneath that story on the tweet are so satisfyingly brilliant and accurate. Let me read it out loud to you because it's that good. And I'm quoting an X community note. This is clearly staged. There's no chance a prisoner who was in the darkness can look with wide eyes at the sun. He just got released, allegedly. Additionally, his jacket is clean, and he has a new haircut and clean nails, which is not a possible case for Syria's prison. Final nail, legacy media, folks. Let's get into it. There are a million reasons to abandon, even hate legacy media right now. What a stunning fall from grace. Once upon a time, CNN, I remember this, CNN was considered to be a beacon of journalism and reporting by many. After all, CNN revolutionized the news game, and many of us lived through it. It used to be we could only get our news a few times a day. Remember that? A morning report, a midday report, and an evening report on the broadcast networks. That was it. If something was going to happen and going on between those reports, we didn't know about it. There was no internet. Other than occasional news bulletins that interrupt your regularly scheduled programming for a big breaking news story report, we simply didn't know what was going on out there. That is, until CNN brought in the 24-hour news cycle. They invented it, and the rest is history. If something was going on in the world, anywhere in the world, we would know about it thanks to CNN, and we trusted what seemed to be straightforward reporting. Well, until it skewed left. Well, and then the competition trickled in, of course. MSNBC came, and the legendary, my mentor, folks, my mentor, the guy who plucked me out of the crowd, Roger Ailes, who saw that the news was skewed, and at least half of the country didn't feel like they were being spoken to, except on talk radio. The likes of Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity were speaking to a whole new audience that was thirsting for a different perspective on the news, politics, everything going on in the world. Those folks listening to Rush and Sean wanted to see it too. They wanted to see the pictures. Hence, Fox News was born. Fox News once filled that void under Roger Ailes. Roger was responsible for the stratospheric rise of Fox News, although his version of it hardly exists anymore anywhere. Its very existence created the legacy media we see today. So threatened by the exposure of certain truths, certain stories, certain viewpoints, it also created the propaganda monsters we now see. Because without Fox News, there wouldn't be a Joy Reid, a Jake Tapper, a Rachel Maddow. These were their answers to Bill O'Reilly, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity. But instead of being truth tellers, the leftist machine has been using the legacy media to peddle their state propaganda, all of them, the lot of them, from broadcast news, CBS, NBC, and ABC, to CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post. Every single legacy media outlet became blinded by the need to take down Fox News, the conservative news channel. They hated them. That is until Donald Trump came along, came down those golden escalator stairs in Trump Tower in 2015, announcing his run for the presidency. Then, of course, all those targets aimed at Fox flipped, and they all pointed their targets at Donald Trump. Donald Trump will lead us into World War III, they said. Russian disinformation, illegitimate president, Russia collusion, insurrectionist, felon, tyrant, fascist, Hitler, they called him. That's the abridged version, of course, but it sums up the legacy media's entire reason for existing: to destroy MAGA, to take down Donald Trump, to keep the left in power and create a world in the eyes of the globalist New World Order view. They have their marching orders, very, very clear. And absolutely every word out of their mouth tells us as much. And Americans now know it. It's why President Trump won so handily. It's why Republicans are now in charge of the House, the Senate, and the White House. It's why legacy media ratings have literally plummeted. The trust is gone. Their times are over.
I'm very worried about the press, extremely worried about the press. I despair. Seriously, I worry greatly, and I think there are other institutions that have been suffering. And you're right not to blame Donald Trump 100%, obviously.
So that was Leslie Stahl, who on the eve of the 2020 presidential election falsely claimed that Hunter Biden's laptop can't be verified and denied the established fact that the FBI spied on Trump. And she's lamenting the end of the legacy media right now. Hold here for 1 second. That interview that Trump did for Leslie Stahl in 60 Minutes, it was 2 weeks prior to the 2020 election. I know this because I was waiting for Trump to finish that interview to come sit for a town hall with me. I did an hour with Trump immediately after the Leslie Stahl interview. And I watched it going on over there. And it was in the Rose Garden at the White House. And I watched him doing that interview with Leslie Stahl. When he was done, he was furious. He was pissed. He was ticked off. He got up and he walked past. We had the setup in the Rose Garden right next to the Oval Office. There's a long colonnade. And he walked down that colonnade with 3 aides, and he's barking at them because she tricked him. She tricked him told him it was going to be an honest interview, and it was all about the Hunter Biden laptop. So he was livid. He didn't want to do my town hall, but to his credit, he did. We sat for an hour. You could see him. His blood was pumping. He was so pissed off at CBS, 60 Minutes, and Leslie Stahl. That's the legacy media, folks, though. Almost without irony, without even beginning to comprehend her own role in it all, Leslie Stahl is throwing the book at us. It's like our fault they're going down. How very ivory tower of her. Not only do they refuse to admit their role in destroying America's trust in the mainstream media, but they've also clearly have no interest at all in actually fixing it. So the Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz said there were more than 24 confidential human sources, or CHSs, in the crowd outside the Capitol on January 6th. Think about that for a second. But only 3 of them, he said, were assigned by the FBI to be present for the event, while stressing that none of the sources was authorized or directed by the Bureau to break the law or encourage others to commit illegal acts. Horowitz released his highly anticipated report on the FBI's handling of its confidential human sources and intelligence collection efforts in the lead up to the January 6, 2021 electoral certification. In other words, 26 or so undercover FBI operatives were involved on January 6th. Why is it 4 years later we're hearing about this? And yet, media headlines would have you believe something entirely different. Donald Trump is named Time Magazine's Person of the Year, the culmination of one of the biggest political comebacks in history. Now, warning, this headline right here may make your head explode. Quote, Donald Trump joins exclusive club enjoyed by Hitler, Stalin, Khrushchev, and Khomeini, says liberal left-wing newspaper. That's their take of Donald Trump gracing the cover of Time magazine as their person of the year. Sure, I get it. Maybe these outlets aren't doing the dance of joy over the development of Donald Trump being the second time president, but this is why we don't hate the media enough. By the way, other figures who've been on the cover of Time magazine as person of the year: FDR, Winston Churchill, Dwight Eisenhower, Queen Elizabeth, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Richard Nixon, Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Newt Gingrich, George W., Rudy, Barack Obama, Mark Zuckerberg, Pope Francis, Joe Biden, and, drumroll, Kamala Harris. Need me to go on? Oh, Greta Thunberg was Person of the Year for some ridiculous unknown reason. That little high school dropout who somehow manages to dictate global energy policy has graced the cover of Time magazine as well. How dare you? Let's not play this ridiculous game any longer, shall we, lefties? These people are now sitting up in stages, in circles, wondering how or why it all went wrong for them. There's no better indication of the fact that these people have their heads so far up their own asses than they pretend they actually have no clue why the American people no longer trust them. They lied. They lied. They're hypocrites and they lied. They're propagandists. And perhaps this is the biggest sticking point for them of all time. What's notable about the Trump victory is that it happened despite biased legacy media coverage. New media like X and podcasts like this, digital media, helped circumvent the narrative gatekeepers. And that was ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post. Those were the gatekeepers, the narrative gatekeepers. And they had a grip on what was out there. Fox was the only one who was squeaking by, grabbing some eyeballs and some ears. That was happening. But guess what? Trump changed it all. He went right to digital. He sat down with podcasters across the country. Now, all of a sudden, people heard the other side. I'm not sure if this outcome would have even been possible if he hadn't done that. They call it the podcast presidency. I think he might be right. And when they wake up and actually realize that, in the process of trying everything in their power to prevent a Trump presidency, they themselves are so very, very much responsible for making the Trump win happen. Congratulations, legacy media. It's why my monologue yesterday, or not my monologue, but my truth bomb yesterday was, we shouldn't yell at the legacy media. We should thank them because their biased reporting, their obvious propaganda, obvious lying to the American people. American people saw right through it, is the reason for the resounding Trump win. Your death, legacy media, has served a most glorious purpose. All right, friends. I have a Kamala Harris sighting to report. Before I roll the clip, let me just brace you for what you're about to see. She's dressed in all red, ironically, just like Dr. Jill on Election Day. She can't sit still for a second, wobbling and twitching as she talks, and as always, she sounds like an absolute moron. All right, here it is, the latest version of our VP.
And I give you permission that if you are going to someone's house who doesn't know how to cook, bring your own dish. You know what I'm saying? I'm all about no regrets.
Certainly looks like Kamala is taking a shot at stand-up comedy. The alcoholic allegations are really starting to mount. The internet is going nuts with every image or clip we get of the vice president. People are genuinely concerned about how much she's allegedly been drinking. So to me, I don't know, keep the theme of the day. I had to shine a little bit of light in another Time magazine cover that's been floating around the internet, clearly. Take a look, and I'll tell you for the people who are listening on radio, it's Kamala holding a drink, some sort of martini or something, and it's the drunk of the year. Time magazine drunk of the year. Folks, let me just tell you something. We dodged a bullet. We dodged the freaking. That was almost the president of the United States. Whew. All right, before we go, I want to take a minute to recognize the production crew behind the scenes of this show. They make me look good-ish. They wrote that. I didn't write that, but let's face it. It's not an easy task to do that. Here's what we're going to do. You have a control room camera? Do you have that? Oh, there they are. There are the folks. Now, if you didn't already know, this crew lives and breathes football. So do I. So I decided to do something special for them this week. I asked them to pick an NFL bet that they're confident about after a lot of heated debates and maybe a few friendly wagers amongst themselves. The verdict is in. And I asked them, I said, before we start the show, just put it in prompt. I have no idea what they're going to pick. I'm going to put a pile of money down in their behalf. Could have bet any game, any way, any game. You want to bet an over and under, team versus team. They know I love betting against the Giants and the Jets, which, by the way, are 16 wins, 2 losses since we've been talking about it. It's going to be a tough week, though. I warn you, I'm still going to do it. But the verdict is in for the crew. This is all theirs. Let's root for the Dolphins to take down Houston at plus 125. What's the line, folks? What's the line, guys? Three? What is it? Well, look at the line. All right, we're going to stay right with us. I'll just look on my betting app, which I love. And you know I love it. All right. So they're saying, I'm going to make sure we have it on the same betting app. They're saying that, I'll find it. I'll find it right here. Okay. 3 points. So Miami's getting 3. So they're going to take Miami plus 3. But they want you guys want the money line, huh? They want the money line. See, I like the points, but they like the money line. So they're going to take the money line plus 125. Stay with us. I love it. We love the football bets. We love our football bets. Have a great weekend. And we'll see who wins on Monday. We'll talk about. We'll see if these guys have a double pile of money or we had some fun over the weekend. Root for the Dolphins. Bolling out.